Hello, are people out there? Let's see.
See one hand.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Cheryl. Let's see. It says I'm live now. See, I've got us on the iPad over here. 13 people. Okay. Let's see if I can get the chat up here. Swipe left. There they are. Hello, Chris. Hello, Kelly. Hello, Madeline. Great. Hi, Alice. Okay. We've already got a little bit of a crowd. Hi, Steve. Let's hear that D chord. Okay, 25 people in the room. I think we can play our first number. We'll play a tune. Join us, please. This is an old-time jam, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how we envision this going. All right, Durang's Hornpipe. A lot of different tunes called Durang's Hornpipe, but this is, to us, the most common version of the bunch. Hornpipe. We've got 44 people in the room. That's pretty exciting. I'm just going to scan back through the comments and make sure things are working. Okay, people are watching.
Let us know if we need to change our positions any so that you can see better. Or
Yeah, it's so tricky to get the camera set up correctly, because if we're testing it with just the iPhone camera, it's a little bit different view from the Facebook Live camera. Isn't that annoying?
And there's a lag.
Yeah, there's a lag. We can see that on the iPad here, but it looks like you can see both of Beth's hands. And I don't know if you need to see mine, but you can hear the fiddle. So this is a play-along old-time jam. We did one of these a month ago, and we got such an enthusiastic response, we figured, why not do another one? Because we only got through like half of the list of tunes last time that we had prepared for the jam. So here we are. We hope to be joined by some of our friends from across the pond at this slightly more conducive time of day than the last time. Did everyone in the U.S. anyway, I don't know about other places, remember to fall back last night? Are we all at the same time? I hope so.
I love that particular day of the year.
Me too. Me too. Great to get an extra hour of sleep. This is not meant to be a concert. This is a jam. Please play along. If you want to treat it as a concert, that's totally up to you, but we're not going to be especially entertaining. Let me warn you now, there's not going to be singing, there's not going to be much patter, there won't be any banjo, because the fiddle delivers a clearer and more complete melody, and it's an easier thing to follow. And we'll just be playing in two keys, first D and then A. So if that's not what you had in mind for your live streamed concert experience today, we apologize, and maybe you can find something more entertaining to watch elsewhere on Facebook. But if you want to play along with us, we would love that. And if you want to just listen to an old-time jam here in the dining room, please feel free to do that as well. We've tried to pick a combination of tunes that are more common and less common, but nothing that's totally off the wall. So even if you don't know the tunes, hopefully you'll feel comfortable playing along. We're going to try to keep the tempos moderate and maybe on the low side of moderate, in fact, and we're going to play them a number of times round, so you'll have a chance to catch up with us. Please let us know how this is going in the chat. We really appreciate the feedback. We've got some PayPal and Venmo links pinned as a tip jar if you're so inclined, but no pressure. We're doing this for the fun of it and for some community building while it's still so hard to get people together in person. Do you have anything you want to add about the guitar for those following chords?
Well, I tend to move my hand around quite a bit, and as I said the last time we did this, I'll do everything I can to keep the chord shape, you know, in position as long as I can. But,
before wiggling your fingers.
But bear with me, because that's just kind of what I do. But one thing I wanted to mention again, as always, is that I play A with one finger. So when you see this, me doing this position, that is an A chord. And when we go into the key of A, I will play with the capo the whole time. So that was one thing that I wanted you to be aware of. And there's a couple of runs that I use a lot, and they go in most of the tunes that we're going to be doing today. And I just thought I would illustrate them. They're very simple. I don't really know complicated runs. So the first one is going to be going from the A position back up to the D position. So it's going to be A string.
That's a good one.
So it's going to be open, second, fourth, there. So I'm going to be using that one a great deal. I'm also going to be using a walk into a G chord, which is
That's even a little easier.
there. And the only two I can think of. Oh, and the other thing I would say is to use this jam session as much as you can to practice your alternating bass notes, because they really add quite a bit to the sound and changes it up some, keeps it from being so samey. So practice using them with each tune that you might work with. There's one in particular that we're going to do that most people tend to think that you got to play a lot of chords with it, but you don't. It's real complicated. We're going to shake it.
Maybe we should do that one next.
Okay, because I screw up every time I try to do the complicated chords.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier on this particular tune to just do an alternating bass, and sometimes to put a space, nothing, just to have
an empty beat.
An empty beat will do the trick a lot more than going chord, like this. So that's pretty much it.
All right, cool. And I've got the fiddle tuned to standard tuning. If you want to be in the high bass tuning that some old-time fiddlers use for the key of D, that's fine. I will be using the open strings some, but not a whole lot, so you'll be able to get through the large part of what we're playing in this key in either tuning.
Check and see if there are any questions.
Missed anything.
If you have any questions, let us know.
Hello, so nice to hear from folks. Okay, no questions so far that I'm seeing.
Okay.
So yeah, let's do that one you were alluding to. This is Sarah Armstrong's tune. Some people refer to it as the old reel, which might have been her title for it, I don't remember, but I learned it as Sarah Armstrong's tune, whatever. And the spot that Beth was talking about where we hear some people doing these really quick, choppy changes is right in the opening theme of the A part. Let's try it the way we're not going to do, just so you know.
I'm probably going to mess it up trying to do the extra chords.
Not too fast. At that tempo, but it's going to sound crazed up to speed, and all of those changes just aren't necessary. So we won't do it that way.
I cannot play it all the way through without screwing up.
No.
Playing those extra chords. So I am all about looking for the easiest way to do it.
Yes.
So,
all right, here we go with fewer chords then in the A part. fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting when we're putting these tune lists together and stuff to come back to tunes that were really, really popular a number of years ago for us and then kind of fell off the radar, and then to bring them back around again, it's like, oh, that's why I liked that tune a long time ago.
Yeah.
We should keep it in rotation.
Absolutely. On that note, I think we should do Cherokee Shuffle. That's
one of my
old
favorites.
There are lots of different ways of doing this one, and some people get it in Lost Indian mixed up. Some people think of this as a D tune, others think of it as an A tune. We're going to do it in D. We're going to do it with 3 parts, and we're not going to do it with any minor chord. There's always confusion about, well, where does the minor go? Just use the 4 chord, use the G chord, every place that the minor could have gone, and it's going to sound great, and it's going to be a lot easier. The crooked part, the one that's a little bit longer than standard, is the one we play as our last part, our C part. And I don't know where this version comes from, but the best recording that I know of it is on Bob Carlin's Banging and Sawing album. So if you like this tune enough to want to really sort out a nice version, check out that album with Brad Leftwich on the fiddle.
Where did the Durangs come from?
Oh, that's just a basic Durangs from everywhere. Yeah.
Basic.
All right, Cherokee
Do you
Shuffle.
want to check and see if there's any questions?
I did, and I
Okay.
didn't see it. Shuffle. Love that one. Isn't that fun? All right. Hello, folks. We've got people in England joining in.
Yay!
We've got people in Australia joining in.
It's
Sorry about that,
6:30 in the
Jackie.
morning?
It's so early over there.
Jackie, are you up at 6:30 in the morning?
I think
Oh my gosh!
Jackie must be. Aw, thanks, Ngozi. I hope you're jamming along. We love your bass here with us right now. Mitch, you too. I hope you're playing the banjo. Alright, thinking of that banging and sawing album, let's do that Cutting at the Point, which was also on there. I think Judy Hyman was the fiddler on that. But we were just reminded of this Cutting at the Point the other day. We just got that new Volo Bogtrotters, like, retrospective thing, all of their old recordings reissued, and it's on there, and you should check out that recording. It's got a lot of cool Midwestern tunes and other tunes that we can't wait to dive into ourselves.
We're going to dive into that one, and then we're going to dive into the hard drive concert, which we have not taken off.
That's right.
Ever since we bought it the other day. What an incredible concert.
I can't play those tunes yet, but we're going to work on them.
We're going to work on them.
Sure are. Amazing stuff. All right, Cutting at the Point never quite resolves. Both parts end up on the G chord, the 4 chord. So don't think that you're wrong if that's what you're hearing. That's just the way that it goes. And it's got tiny little parts. So we'll play this a bunch of times round, but not too terribly long before we move on to something a little neat.
And you know, guitar player was for a song that only has 2 chords. It can be a little hairy.
It can.
So,
it can.
there's only two chords, only D and G.
All right, here we go. Cutting at the Point. that fun? Yeah. I feel like that used to be more commonly played than it is today.
It did.
Yeah.
When I was first learning, it was played quite a bit. Now I've got the itchies.
Jackie
Somebody's
says, huh?
What Jackie said?
Jackie says she got up for us both. Of course, who wouldn't? This is the place to be. That's Jackie McKenzie down in Melbourne, Australia.
Hey, thank you, Jackie. And then give our best to Flick.
That's right. Jim Nelson just tuned in, cutting at the point, sure enough. And Jim, thanks to your Volo Bog Trotter retrospective for jogging our memory of that fine tune. We've been listening to that 2 CD set a whole lot, and can't wait to listen more and learn even more.
Now this is
from
going to
it.
be hard for me having a guitar hero.
I know.
On there, so.
A little bit slower one. Want to try that winder slide?
Sure.
Okay.
Adam and I were going to play a dance in Alabama several years ago, and it was in February, wasn't it? Something like that.
I think so.
In February, and it was the funniest thing happened. We were going down. You have to go from where we live. You have to go through Atlanta, Georgia, and there was an ice storm. And by the time we hit the Georgia line, this Minnesotan was going, "We've got to get off the road. It's just horrible because things are sliding everywhere and stuff."
Tractor trailers
are going off, and the one and only sand truck in the entire state of Georgia, I think, was flipped and its wheels were rolling. So where we ended up getting off the interstate so we could get away, and then we couldn't even get out of our car because it was so icy. The parking lot was so icy. Was in Winder, Georgia.
Where we were sliding
and we were doing our own version of the Winder slide.
Yeah.
And Winder actually is not that far from Sugar Hill, Georgia.
Oh, is that right?
That's right. Yeah,
Hilarious.
so you figure, you wonder where these tune names come from, and then you figure it out.
That's right. So, if you're not familiar with this tune, I feel like Raina Gellert really helped get it into circulation with her beautiful recording a number of years back. You might be taken aback by the structure of it. It's got this little tag at the end of the B part, and Beth is going to do one of those walk-ups in the tag. So maybe watch and listen out for that. If you don't know the tune, that'll be the signal that it's getting ready to restart. And we don't like to play this one too fast. I think it's nice as a slow, sweet number. All right. fun to play.
Such a beautiful tune.
It sure
Pretty.
is.
It's modern tune, composed.
Yeah,
Right?
and it was written for that place where we slid around on the interstate.
Winder, Georgia. Yeah.
Sure enough. We taught at this new jam camp in Massachusetts maybe 6 weeks ago, and that was really what the camp was about, way more than individual instrument classes. So we did a lot of round robin stuff with big groups of people, and it was so fun to hear titles like that come up that we hadn't played in a long time.
Yeah.
So the jam camp helped us flesh out our list of good jam tunes that people are liking playing. I think we should do maybe 2 more in D,
Okay.
and then let's switch over to A. What do you think?
All right.
We've got to do that Moonshine Kate.
Oh, yeah.
Got to do that Moonshine Kate because we've got some folks in the UK tuning in, and we learned this in the kitchen of Jill Emerson, fiddler from, I think, Lewis, right?
Lewis, yeah.
In the south of England
Yeah.
in about 2014, I think. I think 2014
Something
we
like
were
that.
in Jill's kitchen, and I have not managed to track down other versions of this tune, but it's the greatest tune ever. We play it all the time. We love to share it with people. I teach it on the banjo some.
Do any of the UK folks tuning in? Do any of you guys know it?
Yeah, I feel like it circulates over there
Moonshine
just
Kate?
generally. Moonshine Kate. Well, let's do it.
All right.
And if you don't know it, which you might well not, because I feel like it's just not commonly played at all, to hear it is to know it. fun to play. I saw an interesting comment while we were playing that. Mitchie tuning in from
on.
Lewis.
Hey, Mitchie.
Hi, Mitchie. Who
I
has
still
only
have
ever...
that wonderful cookbook you gave me.
Oh, yeah.
And it was that time.
It was.
It was that time
when we were in Lewis in
and
2014.
we got together. It's that beautiful hand-illustrated cookbook that Mitchie produced for her son, I think, who was going to college.
I think that's right. Mitchie says she's only ever heard Jill play this. All right, more information is needed. I'd love to know the backstory on that tune because it's such a great one. Hello, Mark Johnson. I wish you were here with your banjo playing along with us. So nice. Want to do that little gal for our last D tune?
Sure.
Maybe, and then rearrange a little bit.
It's another Midwestern tune, isn't it?
Actually, it's not.
It's not?
No, it's from East Tennessee.
Dear.
Yeah, we got it from a Midwesterner. Though.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we got this one from Fiddlin' Steffi Coleman. But it's an East Tennessee tune. Sure enough. Little gal'll fool ya. And if you can figure out the best way to write that in terms of apostrophe placement and exact spelling of things, you get a gold star. Little gal'll fool ya.
Yeah.
Okay?
And we're also going to try our best to keep it from being rip-snorting fast.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to hold this one back.
It wants to go fast, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
But
So
we're going
do
to
our
try to
best.
not let it. This is a short little tune again, but it's packed with interesting and challenging content, I think. I don't think she fooled us this time.
Not this time.
Nope.
Nope.
Kept her under control. All right, we're getting ready to change to the key of A. Beth's putting her guitar, her capo on at the second fret. Sounds pretty good, actually. How are the other shapes? Yeah, I think we can get by with that in the C. Good. So everything is in G position. Feel free, guitar guitarist to join her there, or stay open if you like that sound better. And I'm putting the fiddle in cross A tuning AEAE.
And there's only one tune that we're doing that has any unusual chord? Is that right?
There's one tune with a minor in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the only one, and we did want to do that. Oh, maybe two tunes if we get to them both with the relative minor. So for those tunes, if you're not playing with the capo on, good luck to you.
Yeah.
F sharp minor, right?
Well, and yeah, F sharp minor would be this.
I guess.
Yeah, something like that.
All right, getting some nice feedback. Hi, Lucy Ray. Hi,
Lucy
Isabel. Isabel is there. Hi, Margie. So glad to have you there. Hi, Terry. Oh boy. Okay. It feels like we have so many of our favorite people here right with us. It's not quite the same, but this is better than nothing,
It's
right?
not the same. We have, particularly for friends in the UK, we just cannot wait till we can come back
Can't wait.
and visit. We've missed it so much. And we can't wait for you guys to come here,
Yep.
Isabel. So...
We tune because we care. Would you mind turning your tuner on for a moment and just seeing what it says about the G string? Little sharp, very sharp?
No.
Not very. Let's leave it right where it is.
All
That's
right.
close enough. I was worried that we had drifted away from a standard pitch, but not so bad. Okay, let's do Sandy Boys.
Okay.
What do you say? Ease people in with a more familiar number.
Do you want to speak to that chord progression?
Oh yeah, so this is another one that people play a couple different ways, and we
Yeah.
really prefer one of the ways, and that's how we will do it. It's in what I think of as the B part, but I've heard people reverse the parts too. So this is my B part melody. That's the relevant section. So that's all one chord. This is still one chord. And it resolves to 4 chord. But we've heard people like bounce around between the 1 and the 4, something like this. We're not going to do it that way. And we think it's easier the way we're doing it.
We're all about it easy.
All about easy.
Yes.
All right, let's take it away here. Always a nice blast from the past. Just scrolling back through. Oh, we've got so many friends out there joining in.
Who?
Folks from Canada. Folks from Muncie, Indiana. Hello, Scott. Hi, Susan. Mike King is out there.
Hey, Mike.
From Norwich. Wonderful. Loving it.
Give our best to Haley if you speak to her.
Yeah. Can I hear your chord a little bit more, please? Thank you. If you're just coming in now, we've only just gotten into the key of A, so we hope you'll join us for a few tunes there. Want to do tipping back the chord?
Sure.
Would that be fun? This has been circulating the past few years. We sure enjoy it. I don't know anything about it. We've just learned it through the grapevine, sort of, kind of. But it's super fun to play. I hear tell that it might be a contemporary tune, but I'd love to have that verified if anyone out there knows. All right,
Okay.
ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
We have to keep this one under control, too. It
Yeah,
wants to go fast.
Dave wants to go really fast.
seeing some chatter in the box. Okay. Barb Zavon. Hi,
Hey, Barb.
Barb. We sure miss you and Mark.
We do.
Okay. Barb says, we started on the B part. I've wondered if I had the parts backwards. I'll try to reset. And Claudia, hi Claudia. Claudia says, Tipping Back the Corn, written by Jordan Wankoff of Chicago. Bob Scheffler confirms that. Okay, good to know. I don't know Jordan, but I'm appreciative of Jordan's tune smithing because it's a great number. Very catchy.
Isn't that one of Rachel Eddy's favoriteest tunes?
Yeah, Rachel loves to play that
Yeah.
tune. We love to play that tune with Rachel.
Yes.
Let's see. What do we want to do next? Do we want to do one of those with the minor chord?
Sure.
Booth Shot Lincoln?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do that.
Talk about that little part.
Booth Shot Lincoln. So, first of all, the minor chord, Beth only puts into, no, the E minor shape, that one, into the B part. Some people put it into both parts, but we like it in the B part. And then when we get ready to restart the tune, she's just going to ride the 1. Some people do this bouncy 1-4 thing when restarting, and I think it's a little gimmicky, and it's harder than it needs to be. We like things easy. I don't know about anyone else.
Adam tends to be a less is more fiddler for the backup, so he tends to want less chords than more chords.
Yeah.
And that was
Sometimes.
a learning experience for me because that was not the way I learned to begin with. But I've gotten to like it pretty well.
I mean,
now.
we like the 4 chord in lots of places where it doesn't have to go,
Yeah.
but not in that sort of place.
Yeah.
All right.
Who is this from?
I think it's from a variety of sources. Marcus Martin recorded a wonderful version of it. Well, he recorded it on multiple occasions, actually, but he called it just Booth. So I think it must have come from other primary source fiddlers, too, for it to be widely known by the Booth Shot Lincoln name. If anyone knows other source fiddlers out there who played this, I'd be curious to know.
Such a beautiful tune.
Love that one.
It was so popular there for a while.
It sure was.
I think you should come back.
Yes. Patty Custerock, thank you so much. One of the best fiddlers on the planet tuning in there. I'm going to get nervous now.
Well, it's only fair if I've got to play in front of Jim Nelson.
That's true. Cheryl, that's right. No gimmicky guitaring indeed. We're just not into that. Judy Moldauer is here with us.
Hey,
That's
Judy.
great. Hi, Susan. Thank you, Cynthia. Really appreciating all the feedback there.
It's so
And we've
nice
got time for more still.
It's so nice to get together with people, even virtually. It's just been so long.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're glad to have this venue.
Filling a void for us, for sure.
But sure looking forward to when we're all together again.
Right on. Let's do the Kansas City Reel.
Yeah, you want to talk about this one too?
Yeah.
This one, Adam has atomized this one as well from the way that I first learned it.
Yeah, we first knew it as just a 2-chord tune, 1 and 5, and contrary to what Beth was saying earlier about my preferring fewer chords.
Less is more. This one is more.
Yeah, I love a 4-chord, I really do. And we got the idea to put 4 chords in the B part, where Beth's going to put them, from Rick Martin, wonderful Charlottesville, Virginia fiddler, who also likes 3-chord tunes. I never would have thought to try it this way. And I used to adjust the melody to sort of blend better with the 4-chord, but now I don't. I just play the normal melody, and you all can too. And there will be a little bit of tension between the instruments right there, but it'll feel so good. And the way she puts those 4 chords in organizes the part. I think you'll love it. I hope you will.
Where's this one from?
I have no idea.
Well, did I teach it to you?
I sort of learned it through grapevine.
Well, I learned it from Andy Williams of Plank Road String Band fame. So, but he only did 2 chords.
That's right. All right, Kansas City Reel.
tune, even if you're in a terrible mood, that tune will just pop you right out of it. It's so happy and peppy.
Barb Zavon approves of the 4-chord. Thanks, Barb.
Yay, Barb!
Let's do it that way with you and Mark as soon as we can. I think it'll be fun. All right. Yeah, people are liking. Hi, Jennifer Wilkin. I see you're watching, even though you haven't chimed in. It tells me Jennifer Wilkin is watching. Wish you were here to play with us.
Yeah.
We probably have time for a couple more, don't you think? Looking over our list, trying to decide, would Tomahawk be fun?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? All right. That's another one you learned from the Virginia crowd, right?
No, I learned it from that CD.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who all made us? It was made after Lake Genero?
Lake Genero, I think.
A bunch of folks who went to the Lake Genero Festival, which is on Labor Day weekend, put a CD together a number of years ago. It wasn't ever sold commercially. I think they just gave it to friends and stuff, and it was the Night Hammers, Rusty Nancy,
Steve Arkin,
and I forget who else was on it, but we learned a bunch of great tunes from that CD. Probably ask Steve Arkin if there are any available.
Yeah.
But this tune, this is where it came from, and this is the only place I've ever heard it, and also heard it through a fiddler from Blacksburg, Virginia, named Cindy Cook. Played this tune a lot.
Don't know anything about it otherwise. Let us know if you do. It's a great number, though.
Yeah, on Tomahawk.
All right.
We did Cherokee Shuffle.
Yeah.
Kind of a theme.
I guess. Let's see if anyone had anything to say about Tomahawk. Let's see. Not so far. Nobody quite knows about Tomahawk. All right. Well, keep us posted if you know anything about where it comes from. Let's do one more.
One more.
And then call it a jam. Do you want to do our traditional end
We do.
tune? Let's do that. We hope you all have enjoyed this jam session. I really hope people are playing along and not just listening and expecting us to be more entertaining than we actually are when in jam mode.
We haven't even told a joke. I don't have any jokes.
No, the banter was sitting over there. It hasn't even come on screen.
And,
this really has been enjoyable for us, though, and we hope it fills some kind of void for y'all. Send us feedback, either during the chat while this is going on, in the chat after the fact. We're going to leave the video up. You can keep playing against it if you'd like, or via private message. We'd love to hear what works well, what doesn't work so well, anything we can do to make the experience better for folks, because I'm thinking we'll try to keep doing these every few weeks, maybe.
Please let us know if you'd like for us to keep doing them, and what keys, and maybe send tune suggestions and things like that.
Yeah.
If you would like us to do it again.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
we were thinking about doing it so as to be kind to the Australian folks.
Right, maybe we'll schedule next time with Australia in mind.
Yeah.
Apologies to those.
Poor Jackie doesn't have to get up at 6:30 in the morning.
That's right. That's right. But the cool thing about these is that the videos do stay on Facebook unless we remove them, and I don't think we've done anything embarrassing enough to warrant removing this one.
So we barely touched A, and there's a few more D's for sure.
There are a lot more
and then there's
D's.
G, and C is going to be a stretch for us, but I think we can keep those three keys going for a while.
Yeah, we can do an A modal jam.
A modal jam. So yeah, give us some ideas if you would like.
That jam camp we did, though, was just so inspiring.
Yeah, we had a great time doing that.
Made us dust off a bunch of tunes that are great for this environment that we just hadn't played for a long time.
You know, and everybody always wants to play the newest, hottest tune and stuff, but at one time, all of these tunes were the newest, hottest tunes.
That's right.
It's good to go back and bring them out. And
we like a lot of the standard tunes. They're popular for a reason. They're just good tunes.
One idea that I had, I haven't even said it to Adam yet, but if anybody would be interested, is a round peak jam.
Oh, yeah.
With all round peak tunes.
That would be fun.
Would be almost entirely in DNA.
DNA, yep. Let us know if you like the idea of a round peak jam.
That would be interesting.
Uh-huh.
And because we have quite a few round peak tunes.
We do. All right, been a pleasure having you all here with us. Check out the PayPal and Venmo links that I've pinned at the top of the chat if you're so inclined. But we've just loved the whole experience, and we're not too worried about any kind of bottom line because we're home, and hopefully you all are too. It's a lazy Sunday afternoon. Let's do a bit of that Speed the Plow.
And
that's
there will
going to
be
put that minor
again,
just as part of the
E minor
walk down.
position,
Yeah.
So,
all right, hope you enjoy it, and thanks again for jamming along with us today. There it is. What
Thank
a fun
you.
jam. All right. Requests to please leave it on Facebook. No worries. I think we'll leave it on there. All right. I'm trying to figure out how to stop the feed. It's always a bit of a struggle. I see
Bye-bye.
a finish button. I guess that's it.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. That's right. We'll see you again real soon, I hope. Bye.